The light of dawn filtered through the cracks in my kitchen blinds, like fine blades trapping dust in the air and making it shine. I was sitting at the table, with her fingers hugging a cup of black coffee, already cold, looking at the worn edge of the countertop. It was the day before my 56th birthday, and the only sound in the house was the soft hum of the refrigerator, like a breath, constant, in a place that had been accustomed to silence. In the bathroom, I turned on the light and saw myself in the mirror. The reflection had no mercy. The gray hairs had gone deeper into my hair than I remembered, and my eyes, although still dark, they had lost some of their glow. I traced the lines with the tip of my finger in the corners of my mouth, not by vanity, but out of unbelief. I blinked, and 3 decades vanished. 30 years of working 2 jobs, sewing until my fingers hurt, skipping dinners so my daughter could have what I needed. And yet, here I was, without sales, without plans, without a voice on the phone saying, "Happy early birthday, Mom." Valeria used to get into my bed the night before my birthday with a card she made with notebook paper, folded, and crayons. "You are the best mom in the world," she whispered. That girl vanished at some point between her letter of acceptance to the university in Guadalajara and her first year working in a law firm in Mexico City. The calls became shorter, then more scarce. Now, they only came when she needed some help with tax advice or insurance, a copy of her birth certificate. I never said no, not once, only once. I reminded myself that it was just the hustle and bustle of life, that she was independent because I had raised her to be strong, but I learned strength has a lonely side. It keeps you standing while your heart folds over itself. I washed my face, dried it carefully, and combed my hair in the same low bun I had used for years. I had no plans or guests, but still, I put on a clean blouse and sprayed myself with the perfume she gave me 5 years ago, the last gift I remember that she wrapped. It was almost empty. That afternoon, I looked at my cell phone screen for a long time before writing the message that I had thought about for weeks. Then I sent it, "Valeria, would you like to take a trip with me? I've been saving up, maybe somewhere like Guanajuato, just you and me." The day Valeria was born, the nurse put her in my arms and whispered, "It's strong." And it was. Even as a newborn, her cries were high-pitched and determined, her little hands already closing into fists. I hugged her against my chest. I promised everything, and I meant it. I didn't have much time then. I was 26, recently widowed, and worked as a seamstress at a dry cleaner's near Insurgentes Avenue. I learned to count my stitches with the second hand of the clock on the wall, to hem perfectly, even if my vision was blurred due to lack of sleep. When I couldn't afford daycare, I had her in a basket next to the sewing machine with a blanket and a rattle, humming lullabies between reels. I don't remember the last hot meal I ate for myself in those early years. Most nights, I would put out rice and beans on her plate and pretended I wasn't hungry. Sometimes she offered me a bite, and I laughed and told her that moms have special stomachs that only get full when their babies are satisfied. She believed me. That innocence was a kind of grace. As she grew up, I sewed her Halloween costumes from scratch. I stayed up all night helping her with projects for the science fair. I took out small loans to enroll her in ballet classes when she begged me. When her public school got tough, I found a way to get her into the Santa Cecilia school, although that meant ironing shirts until midnight for a few extra pesos. For a time, she was grateful, sweet. She hugged me. After school, she boasted of her little golden stars. She drew portraits of me with a superhero cape. But things changed little by little. In high school, she started to get away from my world. She hated it when I picked her up in my old car. She once begged me not to enter the parents' meeting because the other moms were different. I pretended I didn't understand. After college, she visited less. Her clothes became more elegant, her tone sharper. The first time I flew to Mexico City, she barely looked up from her cell phone during the whole dinner. When I asked her about her job, she gave short answers and excused herself early for an email from a client. I stayed in her expensive apartment, looking at framed photos of her with colleagues and friends, but not a single one of us. Still, I never insisted. I told myself she was busy, ambitious. It reminded me that I didn't raise her to remain, but to fly high. The night I sent the message about Guanajuato, I looked at the screen for a long time after the delivered symbol appeared. I imagined her reading it with a smile, perhaps even with tears when thinking about it. I imagined she responded immediately, "Yes, Mom, I would love to." But 3 days passed before I received a response. "Okay, but I choose the hotel and you pay for everything." Without a thank you, without a nice sound, just one condition, as if I was making an offer in a transaction. Still, I smiled to myself and whispered, "She said yes." I didn't care how cold her response was. I booked the tickets that night. I opened my savings account and started planning the trip, hoping it would bring us closer again. The plane landed in San Miguel de Allende just after dawn, with the sky still tinged with the last traces of the night. I looked out the window and whispered, "We did it." Valeria did not respond. She was already sliding her finger down her cell phone, with headphones on, one foot hitting the floor of the plane, as if she couldn't wait to be somewhere else. While we were waiting for our suitcases, I tried again. "Look at those tiles on the walls. Aren't they beautiful?" She looked up, nodded vaguely, and returned to her messages. I kept telling myself that the first day of any trip is always the most difficult: tiredness, jet lag, unknown sounds. I told myself she just needed time to adapt. The hotel she chose was hidden among narrow streets, right outside the historic center. It was small but charming, with iron balconies that led to a small square full of cafes and neighbors walking their dogs. When the receptionist gave us the keys, I tried to lighten the mood. "We should take a picture on the balcony, you and me. First day in San Miguel." She didn't even look up. "I'm not in the mood for selfies, Mom." That hurt more than I expected. It wasn't just a photo, it was proof, a frozen moment I could save. We spent the afternoon walking through the cobblestone streets, or rather, I walked while she continued on her cell phone. I pointed out the colors, the little bakeries, the sound of a guitar coming out of a window above us. She gave short answers, sometimes none. That night at dinner, I tried again. "What if tomorrow we go to the parish? They say it's beautiful. It's all the same to me. You decide. Or maybe to the Allende Garden. I think you would love it." She put down the fork with more force than necessary and sighed. "Mom, stop. Why are you acting like this was a magical moment of togetherness? You practically forced me to come on this trip." Her words left me speechless. "I just thought, you always think," she interrupted, "you always think that buying tickets or cooking dinners or being there means we're close. But it's not like that. You don't listen, you just hold on." The room fell silent. Some diners looked at us. I swallowed and reached for my napkin. My fingers were shaking. "I didn't want to pressure you. I just wanted to spend time with you." "Yeah, well, maybe stop trying to fix everything with a vacation." She got up and left the restaurant without waiting for the bill. I stood there, frozen, with cheeks burning with shame. I looked at her half-eaten plate, her untouched glass of wine, and the crumpled napkin she left behind. The waiter approached, hesitated when he saw my face, and then put the bill on the table in silence. I paid without saying anything and walked back to the hotel alone, hugging my jacket, although the night was warm. The following days passed like fog, dense and difficult to catch. We walked through the city like strangers forced to be on the same tour. I kept taking photos, although never with her. She refused every time. It happened on the 5th morning. I woke up early and looked across the room, waiting for a change, some softness. Valeria was already dressed, with her suitcase closed and ready by the door. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "I'm leaving. I booked a return flight." I sat down, confused. "But we have 3 days left. I can't continue with this. This trip is not what I thought it would be. I just wanted time with you," I said softly. "That's all." She turned around, her eyes blazing. "You say it as if it were something innocent, but it isn't. You always expect something. You buy tickets, you make plans, and hope I give you what you need. I'm tired of pretending this is healthy." Her words hit harder than I expected. I stood up, my heart beating strong. You're not serious. She took my bag from the dresser. Leave it, I said quickly. There's my passport, my cards. Do you need me to transfer something? She muttered. I need a taxi. She walked past me. You're taking everything, I whispered. She turned around once at the door. You always find a way, right? And then she was gone. I followed her down the hall, barefoot, screaming her name, but when I arrived at the lobby, the taxi was already driving away. She didn't look back. I stood there for a long time, not knowing what to do. When I came back to the room, it was as if she had never been. Her side of the closet was empty. The bag was gone, and I had gone too in some way. I sat up in bed and looked at my hands. Without money, no passport, no cell phone, only silence and the terrible certainty that, for the first time, I didn't know how to survive what had been taken from me. The knock on the door came just after 8 the next morning. 3 firm taps that made me get up from the crumpled position in which I had fallen asleep. I hadn't moved from the bed the whole night, too empty to cry, too groggy to sleep. My shoes were still near the door where I had left them in shock. My limbs ached and my mouth was dry, but nothing compared to the pain in my chest. The knock sounded again. I dragged myself to the door, not knowing if I should open it. When I did, a man with an immaculate white shirt and dark pants was there, holding a folder. His hair was thick, silver, combed back carefully. His face looked friendly but tired. He raised his folder and pointed with a slight smile. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the intention came from the account. No, I don't speak, I stammered, shaking my head, overwhelmed. He paused, then tried again, slower, softer. Then, in Spanish with an accent, he said, Ma'am, do you speak Spanish? My hand flew to my chest. Yes, I speak Spanish. He nodded in relief. I speak little. I am Matias, the hotel owner. I blinked. My daughter left. She took everything. My passport, my money, my cell phone. I don't know what to do. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears on my hands. Matias took a step back, letting me breathe. He didn't rush, didn't lecture, just nodded and then gently pointed toward the hallway. May I? I let him in. He sat in the only chair in the room. I sat on the edge of the bed. Tell me, slowly, and I did. In broken Spanish, between sobs and sighs, I told him how I had spent my savings for this trip, how I just wanted time with my daughter, how she left with everything I had. I expected confusion or pity. What I saw was understanding. When I finished, Matthias was silent for a moment, then leaned forward. Do you clean, ma'am? Yes, sure, all my life. He smiled, slow and warm. You work here. Clean rooms. I provide food, space to sleep. For a long second, I couldn't speak. Then I whispered, You would do that for me? He nodded. You are a single mother. You are strong. I looked at my hands that had made so much for others, now trembling for me. Okay, I said softly. Yes, I will work. Matthias stood up and gave me a silent nod of approval. We start tomorrow, he said, walking toward the door. Rest today. And just like that, I had a new beginning. The room that Matthias gave me was in the basement. Low ceiling, small bed, a narrow window. It wasn't much, but it was warm, safe, and tight. That night, I cried silently against the pillow, not out of desperation, but because of the strange relief of not having been rejected. I woke up before dawn. Outside my door, folded carefully, was a uniform. I smoothed the blouse with my hands. I put it on slowly, button by button, as if trying to remember the woman's shape that used to be. Cleaning rooms was hard. My back hurt. My hands cracked, and I was slower than the other women. They only spoke Spanish, quick and sharp, and I felt clumsy when I couldn't keep up with them. Even so, sometimes they smiled, pointed when I looked confused. I started writing words I often heard on napkins, pieces of paper in the back of my hand. One afternoon, Matthias saw me scribbling and came back with a worn children's dictionary. "For your pocket," he said in a kind voice. "Start here." And I did. Every night, I sat in the hotel kitchen, practicing simple words. Matthias joined, correcting my pronunciation, laughing gently when I stumbled. I learned that his wife had died of cancer 3 years ago. Clara. He said her name as if she were still alive. We didn't talk much about our pain, but there was comfort in the silence. Two people who had been abandoned, now discovering how to go ahead. One morning, I noticed the cleaning schedule stuck near the supply closet. It was a disaster. Hollow cross shifts without covering, inefficient use of personnel. Years of managing seamstresses had taught me to do things better. That night, I showed Matthias a new version I had drawn. He studied it, then smiled. "Let's try." I hadn't realized how much time had passed since someone took my ideas seriously. I returned to my room in the basement that night, sore and exhausted, but a little more complete. By the end of the second month, the hotel worked better than ever. The changes worked on schedule. Guests left enthusiastic reviews. Matthias began to introduce me as his management assistant, and although I smiled politely, inside I felt something was changing, as if I were entering a skin that had been waiting for me all this time. I started to behave differently, not to impress anyone, but because, for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. One night, after the last guest was registered, Matthias appeared with a small wrapped box and a dark blue clothing bag. "For you," he said. Inside was a new, fitted uniform, elegant, nothing like the simple one I used every day. In the box, a pair of delicate pearl earrings. "It's not for work," he said. "It's for the woman who wears it." I looked at him in surprise. "You don't owe me anything," he added. "But I need you to know I'll see you." That night, we were together on the roof. The breeze was soft. San Miguel stretched out below with a golden light. He took my hand. When he kissed me, I didn't pull away. It felt calm, firm, like something I always deserved but never allowed myself to imagine. A week later, I moved upstairs, no longer to the basement, but to a room with a view of the square. I hung a framed city map above the bed. I marked our little neighborhood in red and wrote a word next to it, beginning. Some mornings, I still woke up in a panic, thinking everything had been a dream. Then I listened to Matthias humming below or the tinkling of dishes in the kitchen and remembered this life was mine. That afternoon, while I was checking reservations at the reception, the door opened. Valeria entered, her hair messy, eyes sunken, a backpack hanging from one shoulder. She froze when she saw me. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Then, barely in a whisper, "Mom, you look slimmer." Her voice, previously high-pitched and impatient, sounded small. I walked around the counter slowly, measuring each step. When I reached her, she opened her mouth to speak, but at first, nothing came out, just a tight sigh. "I was wrong," she said finally. "I shouldn't have left you like that. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I've lost everything. I lost my job, my apartment. I'm in debt. I didn't know where else to go." I studied her, the same face I kept awake whole nights comforting during fevers, the same voice that used to call me Mom as if it were something sacred. Now she looked at me, not with anger or superiority, but with hunger, not only for food, but for shelter, relief, rescue. "I need help," she said, almost in a whisper. "Just a little money to get back home, a place to stay for a few days. Please." I took a silent breath. Then I raised my left hand, letting the golden ring reflect the light. "I got married," I said. Her eyes widened, but before she could answer, I took a folder from the counter and handed it to her. Inside were the documents of the business, my name with Matthias's. "Co-owner, this is mine now," I said with calm. "My life, my future. I built it out of nowhere." She looked down, then stood up in astonishment. "Are you really not going to come back, right?" I didn't say anything. "I forgive you, Valeria. I really do, but I'm not the woman you left behind." She didn't answer. She just nodded once. Then she looked around the hall, as if seeing it for the first time. I saw her walk toward the door, the echo of her footsteps weaker than I remembered. Mornings in San Miguel are calmer now, softer. I sit next to Matthias near the fountain in the courtyard, our cups of hot coffee between our palms, the sound of water mixing with the clattering of dishes in the kitchen. Guests pass by with easy smiles, and I greet them by name. They call me lady now, a word that before felt distant, but now fits like something tailor-made. Valeria left 2 weeks ago. We talked, but not like before. I listened without rushing to rescue, and when she asked for help, I offered something different this time, limits. She cried, I cried, and then we both breathed. I gave her a train ticket and my blessing, but not my savings. It was the first time I loved her without losing myself. This morning, I sent a letter to my old address in Merida. It was addressed to me. Inside, a single sheet of paper with 3 words. I chose myself. I don't know if I'll ever come back. The city I left still lives in pieces of me, in the food I cook, in the rhythm of my words, in the way I keep humming as I fold the clothes. But this place, this life, feels mine in a way nothing else had done before. Matthias stretches his hand across the table and a friend wipes my sleeve. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The tiles on the patio walls shine white and blue in the sun, their worn but beautiful patterns, as if they were more valuable for their imperfections. I take a sip of coffee and lean back in the chair, watching the world start again in silence around me. Maybe motherhood was never destined to erase femininity. Perhaps it was intended to expand it.